The summit suddenly seems to be alive and well again, and the stock market levels off, for now at least.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Just last week, the prospects for a summit meeting between President Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev were unexpectedly uncertain. Gorbachev refused to name a date unless he was assured that President Reagan's space defense system, Star Wars, would be part of the negotiations. But the president wouldn't budge, and now it appears Gorbachev has blinked. More tonight from NBC's chief diplomatic correspondent, John Cochran.
Last Friday, Mikhail Gorbachev told Secretary Shultz he would be sending a letter to President Reagan.
I told him that we'll be checking the postman and be ready to receive it whenever it arrives.
The mailman, it turns out, will be Foreign Minister Shevardnadze. At the UN today, a Soviet diplomat said yes, Gorbachev was willing to hold a summit.
Although at this stage there has not yet been final agreement on the date for the next summit meeting, the possibility of holding it this year still exists.
In Finland, yet another Soviet spokesman said that reports last week were wrong, that Gorbachev never made an agreement on Star Wars, the price for a summit.
Now we are trying to find a compromise. We're trying to say that, well, if you have extra dollars to spare, well, you can spare your dollars on research and development, but let us stick to ABM Treaty.
But the way U.S. officials tell it, Gorbachev insisted last week on limits in Star Wars research before he would come to Washington. The U.S. side didn't back down.
We can't do that.
And Gorbachev began to get something new for him, a bad press accusing him of playing a shell game and of being naive about American politics. Late today, Shultz briefed congressional committees and found some bipartisan backing.
I think they did the right thing. I mean, I think that always when you're in the end game, the last couple of negotiating moves, you've got to be willing and you've got to show the Soviets that you are willing to walk away from the deal.
When asked what he thought about today's apparent back down by the Soviets, President Reagan played it safe, saying he doesn't know what it means.
Despite the Soviet public relations offensive, American officials say what happened today was really a Soviet retreat. But even though those U.S. officials believe Gorbachev blinked on this one, they're trying not to be too smug. After all, they say, we still don't know what's in Gorbachev's letter to President Reagan. John Cochran, NBC News, the State Department.
Someone who has been watching all of this carefully is William Hyland, the editor of Foreign Affairs Quarterly, a former member of the National Security Council staff, an expert on arms control and Soviet policies, a man who's dealt with the Russians a lot. Mr. Hyland, tell us, did Gorbachev miscalculate?
I think he either miscalculated and badly, or he's not in charge. And it's difficult to believe that in 4 days the balance of power in the Kremlin was shifted that rapidly, so I think he made a major mistake.
Does this help the American side in the negotiations when they come?
Oh, I think it helps them enormously. I mean, here we have Shevardnadze virtually crawling back to Washington, trying to salvage Gorbachev's mistake. I think it gives the president a very strong hand.
But would it be dangerous now for the president to bounce back by demanding more of the Soviets?
Probably he should be content with what is an enormous psychological victory, gather in his gains, and go ahead with the game plan, which was a summit and a treaty to be signed on medium-range missiles.
On this business of whether Gorbachev is fully in power, are there any other signs that he does not have full control of the Kremlin?
There were some signs during that long vacation he took. There were some speeches made by other Politburo members that seemed like they were resisting his glasnost and perestroika policies, and that is, of course, Kremlinological evidence that he could be having trouble. And no one has thought that he's totally in control, but he's looked awfully strong.
William Hyland, who is the editor of Foreign Affairs Quarterly, thanks very much for being with us again tonight.
Thanks, you.
Bill. Also coming up here tonight on NBC Nightly News, the latest on the stock market, and Brian Ross with a special segment report on how these Lebanese poppy plants are converted to heroin to help finance terrorist activities around the world, drugs and terror.
Finding a breakfast cereal with calcium can be a real mystery. You won't uncover calcium in cornflakes or in shredded wheat. The place to look is Total. 100% of 9 vitamins and a major source of calcium.
Wood Finish by Minwax penetrates deep into wood, so it's easy to get beautiful results. Bring out wood's rich, warm glow with Wood Finish by Minwax.
Minwax makes wood beautiful.
This man once had a heart attack. Since then, his doctor prescribed exercise, the right foods, and aspirin. Studies show aspirin helps reduce the risk of second heart attacks. Ask your doctor. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Flowers are the reflections of our deepest feelings.
Capturing sunlight to help in the birth.
We send them to celebrate life's special moments.
What would you say if I made to you a promise to fill your world with flowers?
There are many ways to send flowers, but there's only one sure way to send them FTD. Ask your florist. Just say, please send that FTD.
We love visiting America.
Hot dog, fried chicken, pizza.
Buzz, we're glad you have Kaopectate.
Kaopectate.
Nothing relieves diarrhea and calms cramps faster than Kaopectate tablet formula.
The diarrhea specialist.
Wall Street leveled off today, but no one is saying that the worst now is over. In fact, no one seems to know for sure just where the market will head next. It is a day-to-day proposition, and today was just about a wash. NBC's chief financial correspondent Mike Jensen on today's performance and the prospects now for the short-term future.
It was a day that made Wall Street breathe easier. The Dow Jones Industrials up more than 52 points, closing at 1846.49 on volume of more than 260 million shares. A good day for the blue chips. Teledyne up 17, Capital Cities up 16, CBS up 8.5, Merck up 6.5. Other stocks did not do nearly as well, however. There were almost as many losers as gainers on the New York Stock Exchange, and mostly losers in over-the-counter trading, the shares of smaller companies. After yesterday's enormous decline, stock exchange officials today were anxious for a good performance.
We're hopeful that we see a lot more bulls today than bears.
They got the bulls, but outside the exchange, there were still plenty of bears, investors who were skittish about the stock market.
Take whatever you have in terms of money that you have invested in the stock market and really go into possibly CDs. I think it's probably the safest place at the moment is CDs.
With about $1 trillion in paper losses so far because of the stock market collapse and with some loss of consumer confidence, analysts say the nation's retailers may be in for a bleak Christmas.
The party's over. We're very negative about consumer spending in the fourth quarter of this year, which of course includes Christmas.
Some shoppers say they will definitely be buying less, especially if the stock market doesn't begin to come back.
With what has been going on in the past 2 weeks, if some moves aren't made, I'm sure we're going to get real conservative real fast.
And some sellers say they already are feeling the effects of the stock market collapse, especially sellers who cater to wealthy buyers.
We've seen about a 50% reduction in what should be the floor traffic right now. It's become very, very quiet.
Wall Street seems to be the key, with many experts saying that unless the market turns around soon, consumer confidence could begin to drop sharply and increase the chances of an early recession. Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
For his part, President Reagan today adopted a far more serious tone when talking about the stock market. He issued a statement which said that the volatile markets are signals of potential dangers for the economy, adding, anyone who doubted these threats were serious should have been set straight in the last couple of weeks or so. And the president's earlier promise to veto any tax increase that reached his desk, well, it appears that will soon be a faint memory. New taxes as well as spending cuts were on the table today when Treasury Secretary Jim Baker and White House Chief of Staff Howard Baker led an administration team to Capitol Hill for a meeting with congressional leaders on this economic crisis. As NBC's Irving R. Levine reports tonight, there are many ways to tax.
New taxes seem sure to be part of the deficit reduction package, starting with consideration of a grab bag of taxes drawn up by congressional committees. These would extend the 3% tax on telephone bills that was to end this year, tax corporate raiders 50% on profits from stock sold in a takeover attempt, kill interest deductions on loans to buy boats or mobile homes if not used as a main residence. The only tax ruled out is an increase in income tax rates because they were lowered only a year ago in the tax reform law signed by the president. Other options, a national sales tax. A 2% tax would raise $26 billion a year, exceeding the deficit reduction target through a single tax. Objection. A sales tax hits hardest at low-income families. Alcohol and tobacco taxes. A 50% increase in existing taxes would yield $3.6 billion a year. Objection. These are already heavily taxed. Imported oil tax. A $5 a barrel tax would raise $8 billion. Objection.
That it raises the prices of products that use energy and can be inflationary.
Gasoline tax. An additional 10-cent a gallon tax would raise $10 billion. Objection.
In the West, where driving distances are greater, there's a lot more gasoline consumed. The result is it's a very divisive issue as to how to raise those taxes.
Whatever the tax, some Wall Streeters doubt it ultimately would be used to reduce the deficit.
The government is not going to reduce the budget deficit by raising taxes. They're going to spend that money too.
Whatever the tax, there are risks. If it's too small, the government won't appear serious about reducing the deficit. If it's too big, it could slow spending and push the economy into recession. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
And Chrysler is already getting ready for tougher times. It announced today that 3,500 white-collar workers will be laid off. Chairman Lee Iacocca announced another 3% of the Chrysler workforce will be laid off for each of the next 5 years. The city of New York, the home of Wall Street, is also preparing for a possible loss of revenue brought on by the market drop. Mayor Koch announced a 90-day hiring freeze, and he said other measures are under consideration now. Arthur Kane, the distraught investor who yesterday killed his Miami stockbroker and then killed himself, was really Arthur Katz. Convicted of mail fraud in 1978, he cooperated with federal prosecutors. In exchange, he was given a new identity, a government job, and a chance for a new life.
What do you know about cranberries?
I know I like Ocean Spray.
What do you know about cran apple?
Apple juice was never like this.
Good for you, tastes so good too. Cran apple.
The unique cranberry has essential things your body needs. So does Cran Apple, the good-for-you cranberry apple drink.
Better taste it, fresh fruit flavor. Ocean Spray. Cranberry drinks.
It's good for you, America, from Ocean Spray.
Whatever happened to real food? You know the kind that just tastes real good. Come on a dinner I can't pronounce. By the ounce. Whatever happened to real food? You know the kind that just tastes real good. Give me a steak and I won't be through. I got a taste for some real food.
Beef, real food for real people.
Look, they're my parents, and I tell you, they're acting different. I mean, they go dancing. Herbert and Jane dancing. I know, Mother thinks it's fun. She wears eye makeup now. I don't know what's gotten into them. Whose is this? Why don't they act their age?
To help them get more out of life, people are eating better. Some have found Kellogg's Product 19, 100% of 12 vitamins and minerals. Feel good about yourself.
Tennis? They don't play tennis.
Feel like 19 again.
South Koreans today voted a new constitution. 7 hours after the polls closed, the new constitution already had enough votes for adoption. Final support is expected to exceed 90%. Today's vote, as NBC's Steve Mallory reports now, clears the way for an election to decide the successor to President Chun Doo-hwan.
South Koreans had been expected to approve the new constitution since it provides for sweeping democratic reforms, moving the country closer to its first peaceful transition of power. Nearly 80% of South Korea's 25 million eligible voters went to the polls today. The constitution they approved guarantees direct election of the president, a free press, the right of assembly, and independent labor unions. President Chun Doo-hwan, whose term expires early next year, agreed in July to the constitutional changes. Opposition leader Kim Dae-jung is hoping his anti-government record will get him elected president. He's been attracting huge crowds. So has Kim Young-sam, the opposition's other frontrunner. The two Kims, as they're known here, had agreed earlier that only one would seek the presidency to prevent a split of the opposition vote. But now, neither wants to step aside. Roh Tae-woo, the ruling party candidate and President Chun's hand-picked successor, doesn't seem to be as popular, as this incident last week shows. Roh was hit with an egg and jeered by anti-government demonstrators. The election will be held in December. In the meantime, there are concerns about the country's radical students. This evening, a few hundred opposed to the new Constitution clashed with riot police in the Capitol. This was an isolated incident, but it underscores the explosive potential of anti-government demonstrators and could threaten the democratic process the voters have shown they clearly support. Steve Mallory, NBC News, Seoul.
There is some confusion tonight about just how many tourists may be trapped by a snowstorm in a high mountain pass between Tibet and Nepal. There may be as many as 150, and some of them were leaving Tibet because of recent political unrest. The tourists, including some Americans, Europeans, and Japanese, were in four-wheel drive vehicles and buses when the storm struck. 8 hiked out to report many of those trapped had inadequate clothing and food. The Chinese claim that all have been rescued, but the U.S. State Department says it has received conflicting reports so far. President and Mrs. Reagan flew to Phoenix, Arizona today to complete funeral arrangements for Mrs. Reagan's mother, who died at her home there yesterday. Mrs. Reagan's secretary said the First Lady had spent a tearful night. She was taken to her mother's home in North Phoenix. The president flew back to Washington. He'll return for the funeral later this week.
What are you doing at Dow these days, Peggy?
Well, right now I'm working in agricultural research, Grandpa. We're trying to help farmers find new ways to make every dollar work harder.
We want to keep this farm in the family a few more generations.
Pretty tough, isn't it?
You bet. So your dad and brother are going to need all the help they can get.
And you can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
I won't let you down.
'Cause Dow lets you do great things.
Imagine it's lunchtime. That's time for a change of pace at Red Lobster.
It'll make your mouth water,
With luscious lunch specials, most under $4.99.
make your heart melt,
And served in 15 minutes guaranteed, or it's free.
make you flip with every dip, feel like you've never felt.
A shrimp salad sandwich, seafood pasta, or today's fresh catch, Red Lobster for lunch.
We know how you love seafood.
Try our new lunch shrimp trio, just $3.95.
Who was he?
Nathaniel Hunt. Word has it he played a mean game of solitaire.
Oh, and him?
Elmer Rich, never busy, never complained. My inspiration.
At Maytag, some things never change. Today, all our washers still last longer and need fewer repairs.
There's something familiar about those pictures.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
We're celebrating 80 years of dependability. See your Maytag dealer for savings now.
White House Chief of Staff Howard Baker has been meeting with members of Congress about potential Supreme Court nominees to be offered to the president. A long list has been narrowed to about 10, and leading it are 3. Federal Appeals Court Judge Anthony Kennedy of Sacramento, California, Ralph Winter of New Haven, Connecticut, also a federal appeals judge, and Douglas Ginsburg, a member of the Washington, D.C. Federal Appeals Court. As we have heard tonight, negotiators for Congress and the White House now have started their search for ways to cut the federal budget deficit. It is a challenging job for them, and it is also the subject of John Chancellor's commentary tonight. John?
Tom? Last week, while all eyes were on Wall Street, the Social Security Administration announced the latest rise in cost of living benefits. As required by law, Social Security payments will go up by $8.5 billion next year. The program will cost $222 billion in 1988. This week, the White House and the Congress are meeting to hammer out a program, as Tom reported, that will reduce the federal deficit. It's designed to reassure the stock markets that the United States really means to do something about its deficit crisis. Everything is up for negotiation. Even more taxes will be considered. Everything, that is, except Social Security. Social Security is off limits. The $222 billion program will stay as it is with its $8.5 billion cost of living increase. This is a stunning illustration of the power of the Social Security lobby. There are 38 million voters who get Social Security with cost of living increases. Some of them need the money badly, but the elderly as an age group are doing well economically, far better off, for example, than the very young. Yet what political party wants to offend 38 million mainly middle-class voters? Who would even suggest that their cost of living benefits be trimmed? They are 38 million untouchables, and that tells you a lot about the crisis in Washington. The crisis in the stock markets was caused by the crisis in Washington. where the politicians are afraid to offend the voters. It was safer politically to let the country slide into debt, easier to put it all on the credit card than to ask the voters to help balance the books. Politics as usual caused the crisis. Not touching Social Security is politics as usual, which is commentary for this evening, Tom.
Thanks, John. There was a blizzard in Minnesota's Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul today, a blizzard of confetti for the winners of baseball's World Series. The Twins players paraded into a gridlock of fans in downtown Minneapolis. That was the biggest parade in Minneapolis since President Harry Truman and a ticker tape parade in 1948. The world champion Twins then crossed the Mississippi River into St. Paul, where they did it all over again.
You'd expect it to be a hard-working antacid. You'd expect it to be rich in calcium and sodium-free. But what you don't expect is that it tastes so good. Cherry-flavored, calcium-rich Rolaids antacid, the relief you want, the taste you desire.
The beautiful colors of a color tile room. Make them yours now at our big 34th anniversary sale with store-wide savings up to 70%. Save on lustrous ceramics like this Italian floor tile, just $1.79, or Venetian wall tile, only 53 cents. Elegant wood parquet, just 49 cents, and quality vinyl floor tile, only 79 cents. Come to Color Tile now during our big store-wide anniversary sale and save up to 70%. But hurry, sale ends Sunday.
I'm Bryant Gumbel. Tomorrow morning on Today, we'll check Washington's efforts to reduce the deficit.
I'm Jane Pauley, also the Soviet fashion look, and Tony Bennett.
Join us tomorrow morning on Today.
We've been kidding ourselves.
In trying to get all the fiber recommended by the National Cancer Institute, people added fruit, vegetables, and cereal to their diets. Unfortunately, some added the wrong cereal. You see, unlike Kellogg's All Bran, 99% of other cereals don't provide the additional amount of fiber recommended. 99%. Why settle for a fraction of the fiber you can get?
We were kidding ourselves.
When there's Kellogg's All Bran.
Stuff those pressure before
And Afrin. Relieve the pressure and the pain. What Afrin does in 5 minutes takes Sudafed over an hour. It's the #1 recommended nasal spray.
It's time to remember again. Associated Press correspondent Terry Anderson is the longest-held hostage in Lebanon. He's been there since March 16th, 1985. That's 956 days. And today is his 40th birthday. His friends and relatives remembered. At the Jefferson Memorial, children released 40 balloons. They videotaped songs and greetings to be sent to Beirut, along with toys and clothing to be delivered to Beirut orphans in Anderson's name. And on special segment tonight, drugs and terror in that part of the world where the hostages are being held. How terrorists use profits from a rich drug trade to finance their murderous ways. As NBC's Brian Ross reports now, this drug and terror network is expanding at an alarming rate.
Sunrise over the eastern Mediterranean. And in Larnaca, Cyprus, the overnight ferry from Beirut is making its way into the harbor. With all the trouble in Beirut, this ferry is about the only dependable way left to get out of Lebanon. And on board this morning, almost 700 people, most of them fleeing Lebanon for good. But not these two men, who are regulars on the ferry, professional money couriers, going back and forth all the time. According to police in Cyprus, on each trip from Beirut, these men bring out 6 or 7 very heavy suitcases filled with money, a lot of money, in currencies of all kinds. On this day, the equivalent of $50 million. 50 million. Law enforcement authorities in Cyprus say there is a huge cash flow out of Beirut, and that much of the cash in these suitcases is the profits of one business still thriving in Lebanon, the drug business. What's best known about Lebanon is the years of street fighting, shelling, car bombs, massacres, a country seemingly destroying itself. But there is a part of Lebanon that has gone almost untouched by the war. These are rare pictures of Lebanon's secret drug fields in the Bekaa Valley, opium poppies to make heroin, and the Lebanese cannabis plants, which produce much of the world's hashish and hashish oil. This farmer, a Shiite Muslim, says there is no problem growing hashish here. And this farmer says it doesn't bother him to make money from heroin and hashish, money which law enforcement sources say is used to support Shiite terrorism. There are hundreds of acres here under cultivation by the Shiite and Hezbollah drug organizations. And on the coast of Lebanon, a faction of the Christian militia runs and protects at least 4 loading docks that American law enforcement authorities say have been built to ship heroin and hashish around the world. The Shiites and the Christians are enemies on the streets of Beirut, but not in the wide-open Lebanese drug business. Nobody is able to fight drug smuggling in Beirut. Narcotics agents from all over the world, from the United States, Europe, even Australia, are all here in Cyprus, which is about as close as they can get to Beirut, about 100 miles east of here. And the drug agents say what makes their job even more difficult is that the top drug bosses in Beirut are the very men who control the political factions and the terrorism in Lebanon. Law enforcement sources say the Hezbollah terrorists in the 1985 TWA hijacking financed their operation with a $6 million heroin deal. And just last month in Jacksonville, Florida, this Lebanese man, who testified he was part of one of the most powerful families in Lebanon, the Jamal family, was sentenced to 25 years in prison for smuggling more than $1 million worth of hashish oil into Florida from Lebanon.
It seems that drug trafficking is a common denominator for these people.
Mike Pavlik, who runs the American Drug Enforcement Office in Paris, monitors the activities of Lebanese groups involved in narcotics and terrorism, what Pavlik calls narco-terrorism.
That's what we're talking about here, narco-terrorism, the fact of narcotics and the sale of narcotics, the trafficking in narcotics being used to finance various terrorism activities throughout the world. It's obvious money is what is needed. Their biggest export, probably as far as we're concerned, is hashish and heroin.
And now, in the Shuf Mountains in Lebanon, in addition to hashish and heroin, the Lebanese are going into the cocaine business. According to this American law enforcement document, there are cocaine laboratories already operating, and there have been efforts to plant cocoa plants in fields at Tanarin Fuka in the Mount Lebanon region. This boy, the son of a Shiite farmer, has grown up harvesting opium poppies for heroin and knowing only drugs and war. Intelligence sources say the harvest from this year's drug crops was a good one, and that once again there will be millions in drug profits to buy guns, grenades, and bombs for the militias and terrorists in Lebanon. Brian Ross, NBC News, Larnaca, Cyprus.
That's Nightly News for this Tuesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Bellamy's a ruthless senator.
Looks like we've got a leak to fix.
Is Robert Culp's congressional killer. Andy Griffith faces DC's deadliest.
If I get dragged through the mud, you're going with me.
An all-star Matlock. Then Richard Mulligan authors A Friend's Demise.
What an amusing coincidence.
But Dale Robertson knows his story.
How do you think I'm doing? You're insane.
J.J. Starbuck tonight.
Coming up next on the scene at 6, an elderly activist group wants 2 people removed from the state board that oversees nursing homes. We'll tell you about a battle to get Penthouse magazines off store shelves. There's a big change in the Metro Personnel Department. We'll hear how new buzzers may make old schools safer. And we'll find out why so many people are talking about the new age.
These stories and more news coming up next on the scene at 6.
Tucked away in the Blue Ridge Mountains, halfway between Knoxville and Roanoke, is a city unlike any other. Half of it lies in Tennessee, half of it in Virginia.
Excuse me. I hear we're not too far